Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new stream. We went live a couple of days ago for those who did not know, but we're back, and I'm apparently 1 minute late, or you guys were just 1 minute early, should I say. But we have a decent amount to talk about. Politics was, for quite some time, probably about a month or two, not that chaotic ever since the midterm fallout. But now it got a whole lot chaotic pretty quickly here. And you see the speakership drama that was taking place. Kevin McCarthy faced steep opposition to the speaker position for his election, and for good reason, by the way. And after 4 days of Republican, I wouldn't even say infighting, I would just say a stalemate. I would say that one side was just holding their ground, and McCarthy was the one that was caving into their demands, as he has done. Will he honor these demands? We'll talk about that. There's a chance that he doesn't honor some of them, but either way, he has caved on a decent amount of the Freedom Caucus demands, or has claimed that he will cave on a decent amount of these demands, which is a very, very good thing for the right in this country. It's a very good thing for the Freedom Caucus to get all of these people who were hardliners to cave. Usually there's going to be a give and take there. However, that doesn't mean that Kevin McCarthy is somebody who can really be trusted, because he's already proven to the world that he basically cannot be. And we'll discuss why, but also we have the Mike Rogers incident that took place, which kind of does tie into this a little bit, but also could have to do more with some potential committee assignments, because you have all of these demands from the Freedom Caucus, which, again, I don't mean demands as in it's a negative way, because these are rightful demands that they are making in order to potentially push McCarthy to the right, push him to where he needs to be. But also you have fights over who is going to take control of these certain committees. And Mike Rogers was ready to throw hands with Matt Gaetz, who may be eyeing his position. And also, Joe Biden may actually be running for re-election. We know that he has already declared his intent to run. He declared his intent to run probably like a year ago or so. But he's actually getting close to making that formal announcement. We are in 2023. This is the year where a lot of people are going to announce their 2024 bid for the presidency, mainly on the Republican side. Donald Trump already announced, but you're still going to have some, I guess you would say, low-hanging fruit decide to throw their hat in the ring. Probably people like Hutchinson, the disgraced former governor of Arkansas, who took a massive rhino turn recently. He is trying to get some of those rhino votes in the primary, but even so, it's not going to amount to anything. But also, we have the DeSantis question as well, and I'm sure a lot of people will send super chats, because it seems like we talk about the Trump versus DeSantis question nearly every single stream. I try to reason with both sides of the audience here as to why I support who I support. And I think you guys know who that is. But either way, we're going to dive into this without further ado. We're going to have to start off talking about the speakership debacle. And we will be talking about that. If you guys want to join the conversation, feel free to send super chats. You guys can join the Discord server. The link is at redeaglepolitics.com. It is just 16 cents a day. I'm sure one of the mods will put it in chat, but don't spam it in chat like it was being spammed earlier. But it's not like anybody was watching. But I did put this poll out for you guys here, and I just want to make sure that I can pull this up. Or I'm not going to pull it up, but I can take a look at it, where 73% agree that the stalemate was a good thing regardless. Actually, I think more than that would agree, because you have 15% that say it's awful all around. They don't trust McCarthy regardless for whatever reason. Then you have 72% of the audience, and I probably fall more in this camp, that says, I don't trust the guy, but if he's being forced to uphold certain demands, this is still a massive net positive, and we can go from there, because it basically makes him a figurehead. He caved in on everything to the point where Matt Gaetz, Paul Gosar, Andy Biggs, all of these people who were willing to let this thing go on for months and months and months on end basically got to the point where they voted present, and from there, they're likely going to get some sort of concessions in return. And that says a lot from what we understand. We have, I think, the final six were Andy Biggs, Boebert, Eli Crane, which again, he came out of nowhere, Matt Gaetz, who has been just on fire for quite some time about this, Bob Good from Virginia, who again is kind of proof that conventions might actually be better than primaries in some cases, because he was able to get in over the former Rhino Riggleman, who was ousted in Virginia's 5th. And then you have Matt Rosendale, who is just awesome. He's great. He's the guy from Montana's 2nd. He's done a great job as a congressman. Didn't really run the best campaign when he was running for Senate in 2018, but still in Congress, he is just an absolute hardliner, does a phenomenal job there. But these people eventually caved in and voted president. A lot of people are disappointed, but still they were able to get a lot of demands in return. And it's not like them caving, basically were just caving into McCarthy because McCarthy's threatening them. They got what they needed from McCarthy. Now, I will say that I'm not necessarily sure they should have caved, at least just now. They should have drawn this out for as long as they possibly could have drawn it out for, and they possibly could have gotten a lot more demands. But yet people like Matt Gaetz going out there and saying there was nothing else that we potentially could get from this guy, and that's why he's going to end it early, which, again, if that is true, and these demands are honored from McCarthy, and that he basically is going to be this lame duck, and the Freedom Caucus is going to have their power expand 2, 3, 5, 10 times what it initially was from the get-go, that is huge. That is epic right there. Now, will any of these policies over the next 2 years really be able to get passed through? Not necessarily, but if enough people are just, elevated to the power where they could oppose Biden's agenda, that buys enough time for the next 2 years. In 2024, it's possible Republicans keep the House. I'm not going to say it's a for sure thing, because it's not. I think it's 50-50. It is true that a lot of the seats they hold are in New York, some are in California, that may flip back in a presidential year, whatever. And we know that. But also Ohio is going to potentially have redistricting. North Carolina is going to have redistricting. You're going to have these states have more power than they initially had, these red states, and you're going to have more red seats within them. And it's not like Democrats are really going to be able to put a lawsuit forth in a place like New York and get those seats back from the Hochelander. They're just not going to be able to. So either way, this is still a net positive. McCarthy's not going to have the power that Paul Ryan, the obstructionist, had. He's not going to have the power that former speakers of the House had. So either way, I'm not thrilled with this, obviously, but are we better off than we were before, even with the prospect of Kevin McCarthy becoming speaker? Absolutely. There's basically no other way to chalk this up. And we're going to have to see what happens, because he still could cave. He still could be putting forth, again, in 2024, if Republicans do expand their majority, it's possible that he could be able to draw back those negotiations. It's very possible that in 2024, that things could go a lot differently. But still, if he's going to stay out of primaries, then that's a massive net positive. That's a massive victory in and of itself. That is true, because this is arguably the number one reason, besides, McCarthy's just rigid old establishmentarian, is why I oppose McCarthy. He spent tens of millions of dollars against America First candidates in open primaries that could have been used to expand the House majority and actually, save his job as potential speaker, ironically enough, by having a sizable majority. But instead that money was spent on, against people like Michael Cassidy, Anthony Sabatini, actual America First Congress people, and he worked overtime to defend impeachment Republicans, which also makes the support he got from Donald Trump very weird. Now, I will say that he came out and he's thanked Donald Trump for saving his job basically as speaker, because that is what Donald Trump did. He got on the phone and he made phone calls with a lot of these representatives to make McCarthy speaker. Now, maybe in Trump's mind, he views this as he's doing some 4D chess. I'm not saying it's 4D chess, but he potentially could view it as some 4D chess, where basically he puts McCarthy on the hot seat and then saves his job. And then if he does run, which obviously he's running, but if he does win the nomination, does win the presidency in 2024, McCarthy is somebody who is going to cave more to his demands. Maybe he views it that way. Will that happen? I don't know. We saw Trump, save Paul Ryan's job. It saved the jobs of a lot of people who could have been primaried back in 2016. He endorsed them, probably thinking that he was playing the long game to get their support. And it really didn't exactly work out in his first term. So I don't exactly know that if it would work out in his second term, if he actually does get a second term, which still we don't really know. But either way, it is true that Trump saved McCarthy to a certain extent because he was making those calls. This is true, but I don't know. I don't think that it was really the best idea to go out there and support this guy for speaker who single-handedly, or by the way, the Trump base, the original Trump base doesn't even like the guy, for one. And for two, he completely fumbled the ball, tried to save rhinos, funded rhinos in the midterms. Even if you want to say he politically is your just average conservative or he's not a rhino, he is a useful tool for the rhinos and has worked overtime to save their jobs, go out of their way, throw himself on the line for the rhinos, while just trying to do everything he possibly could do to sabotage America First candidates in the primaries, which in turn leads them to be sabotaged in the general election as well, giving all this money to candidates who exactly, would potentially not have won their primaries if he didn't give them money, and they were weaker in safe red seats mainly, or likelier safe red seats, than the candidates that actually would have potentially been able to win if you got the big money out of politics. So I will say, if McCarthy does honor that demand, it'll be worth it, arguably, in and of itself. He still needs to have a lot of pressure put on him. He's basically going to have a lot of pressure put on him. So this is not like a massive win. I'm not saying that this is like a great thing, but in terms of McCarthy becoming speaker, but the stalemate did potentially lead to his job being weaker, or his post being weaker than it currently is, and the inmates are going to be running the prison per se, at least in the view of the establishment, and that's a good thing for us, because the current establishment is not on our side. It's not on the side of the base. It's not on the side of the American people, and we know that they serve the same interests of the uniparty. Kevin McCarthy is uniparty, regardless of however you want to chalk him up. Somebody like Andy Biggs, or, to a lesser extent, somebody like Jim Jordan, Byron Donald, some of the other people that were having their names being thrown in the running, those people are less uniparty, or they're just not uniparty at all. They are authentic conservatives, and they were able to get their way to a large degree. And the most powerful Republicans in the House now are going to be not Kevin McCarthy. They're going to be the Freedom Caucus members to a certain extent. But still, McCarthy has the gavel. He does hold a decent amount of power, but it has been diminished. And that is a good thing. That's a very good thing. And I don't know what it's going to mean over the next couple of years. I'm sure they're going to open up a lot of investigations. They're probably going to go after Fauci, Hunter Biden, etc. That's been talked about. Even McCarthy has said that would have been talked about for the longest time. So it's possible that they're going to be just launching a lot of these investigations. I don't know what they're going to amount to, because a lot of the people that are going to be in charge of the investigations are probably themselves going to be incompetent, and who knows what's going to happen behind the scenes. But either way, we know that Kevin McCarthy will be speaker, and there's so many caveats to it, to the point where Gaetz just couldn't get anything else out of the deal, except he was able to somehow get attacked, which we're going to talk about this now. Mike Rogers from Alabama, he's been in there for 20 years. He's a relative dinosaur. He has maybe like one memorably good vote, which was the whole rejection of Juneteenth. That was like the only memorable vote that he had that was actually solid. Other than that, he's been fairly met or weak, and he's been in there for 20 years and has just shilled for Kevin McCarthy throughout this whole process. Now, if he was somebody who, would have still supported McCarthy at the end or voted present, but, actually understood the process to push McCarthy to the right, well, then he would not have been so angry about it. But the whole time that this process was going on, you saw Mike Rogers throwing a temper tantrum, and he had a lot of vitriol towards Representative Matt Gaetz out of Florida. A lot of people know about Matt Gaetz. I don't think he really is a man who needs an introduction on this channel. We've talked about him quite a bit. He's somebody who's not really perfect on every single issue, but he is a fighter, and in terms of foreign policy, etc., he's America first in many ways, and is somebody who really, I think, has a pulse on the base more so than not, and he led the fight against Kevin McCarthy. He also potentially wants some committee assignments, potentially one that's been, in consideration by Mike Rogers, and Mike Rogers just had to be held back because he was going out there. He was ready to just attack Matt Gaetz throughout this process back when Kevin McCarthy was like 0-14 or so, because he was 0-14. And then you saw him, eventually get a few people to vote present because he caved on more demands, and they voted him in speaker, as we know. But still, he had to be held back because he was attacking. He was going directly for Matt Gaetz. He was just ready to attack, and it's like, okay, interesting that we have Republicans attacking other Republicans on the floor because of certain votes or certain policies or whatever. It's all about power. That's all it is. It's just a struggle for power within the GOP because you have the establishment. They know that their days are numbered, and they are very nervous as a result, and they should be nervous as a result. They could use you could argue that they're going to be able to use 2022 as a mandate because technically they allowed 2022 to become exactly what 2022 was based off of how they navigated, based off of how they funded certain candidates, and we know this all. But furthermore, it's very important to understand that these people never do this for the other side. They will never attack a Democrat. You will never see that happen ever. You will never see Mike Rogers go out there and get mad because one of the members of our opposition party votes to destroy the fabric of this republic, as they have many times over the years. You will never see him physically intimidate. You will never see him assault. And I'm not saying he should, because it should be condemned. It's wrong. We know that. But you only see him doing this to people on the right. That's really the straw that broke the camel's back for this guy, was the fact that people are opposing their golden boy McCarthy because people potentially might be coming for his committee assignments because it's time for a change. And it just shows where the priorities of these people truly lie. Nobody should be intimidated or assaulted on the Capitol floor. But when it comes to the point where that happens, it's an establishment Republican ready to throw hands. It's funny because Democrats usually have been the ones stoking claims of violence in this country, especially in terms of a means to a political end. You have people like Max Waters that are going out there saying, confront these people at every turn, etc. Yet the first actual person to almost get violent on the House floor was an establishment Republican throwing hands with or almost throwing hands, because it didn't actually happen, but he had to be restrained. But he was ready to attack Matt Gaetz, and it speaks volumes about the priorities of the GOP establishment. That's all it does, and we know that. We absolutely know that. But that is true. And we're 20 minutes in. I want to get to Super Chats, but actually, I think we're just going to get to Super Chats right now, because we're gonna be getting to the Biden stuff in a little bit, but we're gonna get to Super Chats first, guys. We have 800 live viewers or so in chat. Like this stream, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell if you haven't hit the bell yet, and we are going to get underway with reading Super Chats. So bear with me here. Also, congratulations to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are now the AFC South champions, for those who do not know. Let me pull up the super chats here and see what they have. All right. Here we go. Ron DeSantis says that Mike Rogers thing was so funny, bro almost threw hands with Gaetz. He almost did. He almost did. Gerald Armstrong says could have gotten a Biden impeachment guarantee. The thing is, I will say this, it's just a measure that would be symbolic and really nothing else. Is that really going to be at the top of the priority list? Should he be in office? Absolutely not. But if they impeach him, what's it going to do? It's going to go to the Senate. It's going to die because Democrats hold the Senate. You need 67 seats to remove him. And you're probably, if you even got a trial, knowing how the Republican Party works, especially the Senate Republicans, you're probably going to have like 20 at most vote to remove Biden from office. So that's the way I see it. Should they have had a guarantee? I mean, like they should be open to it, of course. And I think now they basically can be in the rules, but it's not like I'm going to say that that's the number one priority because he's not going to be removed from office via impeachment. There is virtually no way. Republicans don't have enough Senate seats for that to happen. Even if they did, that would just make Kamala Harris the president. And even if they impeach both of them at the same time, I mean, you think that's going to happen or that's going to get through? No, even if they committed the worst crimes possible, Democrats are not going to throw they're not going to throw him under the bus. Somebody like Trump could get impeached because Republicans are weak, and a lot of Republicans really didn't like him. And the only reason why Donald Trump did not get removed in the Senate, or I wouldn't say removed, or just basically barred from running from office ever again, was simply because of the fact that Trump caved into some of their demands. You remember the lobbying ban that was in place throughout his entire presidency. He got rid of that at the last minute. Certain people that he wanted to pardon, he was not allowed to pardon. Certain people who he did pardon, he was probably not initially going to pardon, but a lot of, very corrupt members of, I guess you would say both sides, over the years were pardoned by Donald Trump. He pardoned Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick, ironically enough, at his last one of his last things that he did in office, which again, I don't think that House or Senate Republicans made sure that he would have pardoned him, for example. But there were a lot of examples that you could have used. But a lot of Trump's actions on the way out that were more establishmentarian were likely because of deals that were cut behind the scenes. That's why you saw people like McConnell didn't exactly impeach. A lot of people that called for Trump's impeachment from the get-go did not exactly get, they didn't exactly vote to impeach him. So we know that. But furthermore, let's see. Olivia Williams says McCarthy is being like an NFL coach, but his players have full control over plays and play calling. This is actually a very good analogy. And it's true because he's somebody who is a figurehead, but he doesn't call the plays. He doesn't call the shots as much as he used to. Like, he technically has the gavel, but it has been gutted. And you might say it's a loss that he's not exactly not going to be speaker, but he was always going to be speaker. The fact that you got all of these concessions from the guy really shows that arguably is a W right there. There was no shot that he was not going to become speaker one way or another. And the fact that he caved into all of these demands, that's going to buy time for the next couple of years. And if he doesn't honor them, you're going to have more defectors, and he's not going to be speaker post-2024. I can guarantee you that much. I can guarantee you. Because the campaign to make sure that he's not speaker is going to be even greater. And in the House Rules package, I believe that this time around, they're going to be able to have a single member say, we're going to remove you, put it up to a vote, if he doesn't honor the demands, which basically gives the entire, and I mean the entire side of the Freedom Caucus, the power, more so than McCarthy does. And of course, they're going to be like, oh, the inmates are running the prison. We're going to be like, oh, that's based. We need that to happen because the guards have been screwing up for far too long. Olivia Williams says, do you have a hard line to no longer support Trump? Well, I mean, I would say that it just depends what the options are. I personally don't see Trump as somebody who is going to single-handedly save this country at this point. I mean, the guy is, he's in his late 70s, and given how the first term went, the second term, even if you want to say that it's going to be better, if it does happen, it's likely not exactly going to be enough, especially given how broken the GOP establishment is. I would say that he's going to have to still earn my support in a primary, obviously, but he has it right now. So it depends exactly how the next, I would say not just a few months ago, but how the next year is going to go, and we'll take it from there. But Trump is somebody that, like I said, he's not perfect. He is flawed. He still has his moments. He's not really 2016 Trump anymore, but still, compared to the other options, I see him as the best option, honestly, as of right now. But and people are going to say DeSantis. There are flawed arguments in that reasoning as well. Can Trump win is the real question. And I guess it would basically come down to the fact is if the GOP establishment is going to do everything they can do to sabotage him again, just like they did to a lot of the candidates that supported him in 2022. Because either way, they're playing the long game and they want him to get out of the way. Even when they grifted off of his name, even when they supported him back in, during his presidency, during his term, like it's very obvious that a lot of those people now are not exactly on his side. A lot of conservative media that was friendly with him, including like Fox News, Daily Wire, etc. Where are they now regarding Trump? They completely want him gone. They're propping up his opposition, and they never were with Trump in the first place. And that's where kind of the skepticism comes in, why a lot of people are skeptical of Ron DeSantis 2024 if it happens, because you have to look at who's exactly astroturfing it. And the people that are astroturfing DeSantis 2024, a lot of these people were never Trumpers, and they were the Bush conservatives back in the day, and a lot of them didn't really support Trump that much during his presidency even, and they're just the donor class, which again, if DeSantis is going to basically tell these people to screw off, run anyways, and gets in there somehow, and he's not exactly going to be beholden to them. Maybe it would not be a disaster, but at the end of the day, that's a big question mark. And there are question marks around Trump because he's not what he once was, and we know that. And also, the GOP establishment will likely do everything in their power to sabotage him, either in the primary or in the general election. So that's what it comes down to. Now, is Ron DeSantis a good governor? Yes, I support him in Florida. He's doing a good job. He's not exactly perfect, just like Trump is not exactly perfect, but still. Let's see. More super chats. Want to get to all of them. Bell Fagor says, New Mod SoCal is doing a good job. Much better human resources decisions than Trump. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing in regards to a lot of people that'll criticize Trump, and they're actually accurate here, is that a lot of his endorsements, which again, now they're criticizing his endorsements the other way because he actually made better endorsements, but they just weren't properly funded or helped out by the establishment. But Trump has caved. He's put a lot of establishmentarian members of his cabinet, and I feel like next time around it would be less of, because a lot of his earlier supporters this time are, I guess you would say, more anti-establishment than his earlier supporters back in or I guess you would say the people that latched onto him back in even 2016 after the election, that had a lot of influence over his cabinet. So yeah, I don't know. It really comes down to a lot of factors regarding Trump's personnel hires. I don't believe he really has made the best hires. Also, it's important to note that if you have somebody in there like Ron DeSantis, I mean, look at his hires right now in Florida. Didn't one of his press secretaries support impeaching Donald Trump for 1-6? And that's a big litmus test, in my opinion, by the way, because no, you can criticize Donald Trump, obviously, but if you're going to be criticizing Donald Trump for things that he didn't do because you want to appease the left or you want to cave into their moral framework, then you're just a moron. You're not a conservative. You're not being helpful at all. You're just a loser. You're a pushover. It says a lot about you. It really does. If you're going to lie about Trump to make him look bad to appease the left, it doesn't matter whether you support Trump or you support DeSantis in 2024. You have to agree that that's wrong. That is just awful. It speaks volumes about your bad character and who you really side with at the end of the day. So that's what it comes down to. That is a litmus test. And it should be a litmus test for people that have good faith, that do support DeSantis in 2024. But I'm sure for some of them, they're going to find some BS excuse to say, oh, it doesn't matter. Because it absolutely does matter. If you're going to throw people under the bus for things they didn't do or lie about them the same way the left lies about them, you're not on the same side as me. And honestly, we really just don't need you. We really just don't. So let's see, more super chats here. Stephen Kanizik says, I've been listening to Jimmy Dore today, and I think it might be wise to use the big concession package to drive a wedge between establishment Dems and the Justice Dem/DSA. The thing is, they both serve the same end goal. The Dems have these like AOC types exactly where they want them. It's very hard to say that there's like an anti-establishment left. The only difference is one will talk about opposing corporations more so than the other will, who is completely owned by the corporations. And that's pretty much it. But at the end of the day, they fall in line. The corporations go woke and they fall in line with the same demands. Exactly. You don't even hear a lot from those people anymore. You don't, because the left has them right where they want them. And a lot of them are just either just too dumb to see it or they're just content with that. And that's pretty much it. They're not authentically anti-establishment. They supported the current thing at every single turn. Notice how you didn't have like one single anti-lockdown Dem. Like that was a massive thing that we saw, a massive transformation of our society by the establishment. All of those people just fell directly in line with that. They fell in line. So, and that's another litmus test for determining if you side with the establishment or not. And the so-called Justice Dems or the DSA, they failed at every single turn throughout that entire process. So let's see here. Exactly says, did you see Gosar when he voted for McCarthy the first and second time? Looked like someone kidnapped a member of his family. He looked distressed. I mean, I didn't exactly see it. I could very well believe that that he was disappointed, but at the end of the day, he still voted for it. I'm not going to sit here and say that people were forcing him to vote that certain way, because he caved a lot sooner than people who I would have expected to cave sooner caved, actually. Like, the fact that Eli Crane was still voting no, we're voting present, and Gosar was voting for McCarthy, I don't know. I think he's Gosar. It's hard to exactly determine when he's like, I guess you would say sad or happy or whatever. I mean, the guy has medical conditions from what you can tell. I mean, just looking at the guy, you know, he's getting old. So I don't know. He could have just been tired for all we know. I really don't know. I love Paul Gosar, though. I really do. He's arguably one of the best, if not the best, people in Congress that we have. And it's kind of sad to see people that are like, oh, we got to primary every single Republican now because this, you know, they eventually voted for McCarthy. It's like, yeah, I know that it's disappointing, but the fact that they were able to get McCarthy to agree to certain demands shows a lot about how effective that what they did was, and just saying for people to go out and primary literally everyone. I'm usually the guy that says primary as many people as we possibly can, but we also just need to be smart about this as well. There is a little bit of nuance to it as well. But exactly says, what issue is Gaetz bad on? I mean, I don't know if he's really bad on a whole lot of issues. I would say, like, when it comes to, like, the environmental stuff, I've heard things about him just kind of, like, not exactly siding with the right on a lot of that stuff. And sometimes, I don't know if it's, like, the legalize all drugs thing. I think he supports decriminalizing most drugs. I could be wrong, but I heard on, like, environmental issues and drug issues, he's kind of weak there, but either way, he's still a net positive. He is somebody who is a flawed fighter, in my opinion, and that's pretty much it. So Matt Gagnon says Anthony Sabatini isn't America First if he's advocating for Gosar and Green to get primaried. He was also a Democrat, unlike Corey Mills, who is a true America First conservative. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if he was a Democrat. I don't know if that is exactly canon. Maybe it is. I don't know. I could be wrong. But no, Sabatini was the better choice over Mills by far. And Mills is somebody who took money from the establishment. He's a career grifter. He had very liberal policies until Sabatini pushed him to the right on rhetoric. And now it seems as if he likely is going to cave on those things too. So, yeah, I don't know. Okay, some people are saying Sabatini was a Dem until 2015. I don't see that as a bad thing necessarily. If the Trump revolution is what woke people up and, that were, I guess you would say, on the last strands of the anti-establishment left, which again is not a thing anymore, obviously, and they just became Trump Republicans, I don't even know if that's really a bad thing. It's not like he holds a bunch of liberal positions. He probably was relatively apolitical until then. And he was the most proven conservative fighter and leader in the Florida state legislature. So even if he was like a full-on Democrat until 2015, clearly he changed. So All New Year 2020 says, what are some of your terms for certain races in 22, red or blue wave, like in Michigan, Florida, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, or Arizona? Michigan and Pennsylvania were pretty much a blue wave or a blue rain of sorts. Florida was obviously a red tsunami. Arizona was kind of like a purple rain. Wisconsin, the same thing, which again, that's disappointing in both of those regards. And it also does show that you could argue that mechanics just are lacking in these Rust Belt states for Republicans. They don't know how to win. They don't have competent voting operations going in these places. Democrats know what they're doing. They go to Madison, they go to Milwaukee, they cannibalize their votes, and it's worked out for them. And I think that it just shows that we need to learn how to play the game to our own advantage. We need to use election month to our advantage, which we don't use. The Dems have been using it, and it's been in place for them. And Republicans say, "Oh no, we need to go back to the days of old regarding our voting system." And they're correct, by the way, in saying that. I'm not trying to say that they're not, but still, Democrats are using the system to their advantage when we could also use it to our advantage, and we're not using it to our advantage. And arguably, that has more, or that is a larger bearing on the election results than anything to do with candidate quality or even to, I'd say fundraising is just up there, which again, it's weird because we thought that these certain metrics that were not accurate in the past, like funding, or were like things of, actually, we thought they were things of the past after 2020, which is true. We thought funding is kind of an outdated metric to determine who's going to win House races or Senate races, because it used to be a very accurate metric regardless of polling. And now 2022, we're back to square one because, Trump wasn't on the ballot. And now it's like, okay, well, maybe some of the metrics that we thought, like national environment and trends, which were a big factor even in 2020, they kind of went out the window in 2022 as well. It kind of was a state-by-state type of thing, a competence thing, a mechanics thing. So we need to actually use the system at hand to our advantage, or we're going to keep losing. And you could sit back there and, bitch, whine, and moan about the electoral system. Fine, I'll bitch, whine, and moan with you about it. But at the end of the day, we have to understand how to actually play the game to win, or we're just going to keep losing. And we have to actually take power in order to do something. So you could be mad about that. You could say, oh no, well, this, that, and the other thing. I don't care what you have to say, honestly, because all that really matters is the fact that we need to start winning, and we need to do everything that we possibly can do in order to win. So that's pretty much it. So up next, let's see, Noah Bowdy says, given the recent Trump L's, at what point would you support DeSantis in the primary? I worry 2020 broke Trump, but he doesn't keep his eye on the ball. Well, I think that Trump is still the guy, in my opinion, even despite his flaws, which like I said, he is not what he used to be. Everybody knows this. But for DeSantis to actually do something to earn my support, he would basically have to tell the donors to, screw off, which I don't believe he's going to do, partially because he does need the money. But he's also going to have to prove why he's more of a nationalist or a populist than Trump. What's he going to do about immigration? What's he going to do about all of these things? And how exactly is he going to be held accountable for them? I don't exactly know. But you look at the way that he's conducted himself throughout his whole entire career in Congress, And it's not exactly like this, oh, he's better than Trump without the baggage type of guy. He was a decent congressman. He had some very iffy votes. He had some very okay votes and a couple of decent ones. Like, that's pretty much it regarding Ron DeSantis in Congress. He's done a good job as governor, but it doesn't always translate well at the national level. Because you are a good official or you're competent at the state level, it does not necessarily mean that you are going to be this, powerful executive who gets all these things done at the national level, especially because of the fact that Florida's state legislature is a lot different than Congress, as we know. And even then, there's a lot of rhinos. And even then, some of the bills that DeSantis has signed into law are not exactly perfect or ideal. I think that if he had a better state house, they arguably would have been. I still think he probably would have signed it. But I don't know. Like I said, a lot can change, obviously, in politics, but I still would take the flawed outsider over the unproven at the national level insider who's done a decent job as governor. I agree with the electability argument, but at the same time, when you look into it further, is DeSantis really all that electable? I mean, he's not that charismatic, and the election is won through the Rust Belt. It comes down to, is Trump more likely to win Pennsylvania than DeSantis is to win Wisconsin? If Trump gets his act together, I think the answer is yes. And even if not, there's no guarantee that DeSantis is going to win Wisconsin, especially given what we saw when Trump wasn't on the ballot during these midterms. So I don't know. We have a long way to go. I think we're going to get a better picture of it a year from now. But until then, Trump has my support, even if it is reluctant at certain times. So up next we have, let me find this super chat. Let's see what we have here. Mr. Jimmy says, should Mike Garcia run for California statewide office to be the Zeldin of California and help ours win down ballot? I mean, I don't know. I think that his seat is just still the only seat that, or the only, he's the only person that's going to be able to win his seat. And if that's the case, I think he needs to be there. And maybe in the future, he could run for statewide office if there's somebody that could replace him in terms of being an electoral juggernaut or whatever. But I don't know. We're not exactly there yet. California needs to get closer. I don't know if it will be. You do have a lot of conservatives fleeing California, but also the state is becoming more and more Republican, even though it's very slowly. It's not exactly going to be like a red state. It's like, Republicans are going from, 34 to 36% in the state. So, I mean, there still needs to be work done. And we don't really know the way that Hispanic trends are going to go. I think the midterms are really going to really prove that Republicans do need to pump the brakes on believing that, Hispanics are going to completely shift vastly to the right permanently. It's like, yeah, in Texas, even in South Texas, Abbott did outperform Trump in some of the RGV counties, but it wasn't entirely enough. And this is all just a turnout game. It really is. A lot of those South Texas voters that came out, the Tejanos, by the way, they're not exactly like immigrants or even like Mexican Americans. They voted Republican, but a lot of them just never voted before that came out and voted for Trump. I mean, some of them did flip from Hillary to Trump, but a lot of them just never voted before. And that says that just says a lot there. So up next we have SoCal Populist says, who are your preferred candidates in the Wisconsin and Arizona Senate races in 2024? I think Biggs in Arizona might be the best bet. It really depends on the three-way split. If the three-way split does persist and Democrats do run somebody against Sinema there. In terms of Wisconsin, I like Tom Tiffany. I'm fine with Gallagher. There's a couple of options there. The Wisconsin bench is a lot more deep than Michigan's is, thankfully. Hopefully we can get somebody up there that can defeat Baldwin, but you're going to need somebody that can also tap into the Trump base without losing the WOW counties. So I don't know who that's exactly going to be. We'll have to see. Joe Santos should be worried that Trump was so quick to endorse McCarthy was pure establishment. Why does Trump shill for rhinos so easily these days? Well, we should be worried about it now. I will say that McCarthy did thank him first thing after he was elected speaker, which he didn't have to do. He could have thrown him under the bus. So the only silver lining in that was that Trump might be able to control him more because Trump basically gave him his job. I don't know if that's going to persist. Trump has done this, I'm going to placate these people to see if they actually, follow through with my best interest later on. Very skeptical, but I'm very happy about the fact that the stalemate is potentially going to allow the rules to be changed. So the Freedom Caucus has near total control of what's going to go on in the House. So John Waffle, H2P, says Joe Manchin and the more moderate side would probably cave to Republicans to impeach Biden and Harris. Of course they would not do that. I mean, they supported all of Biden's judges and cabinet picks or whatever. Manchin is not going to impeach Biden and Harris. There's no way. I mean, and he's the best bet for that to happen. Most Republicans aren't going to impeach Biden and Harris, which would basically just make it a waste of time and probably embolden Dems ahead of 24, which again is probably not the best move strategically speaking. And you could say that, well, you still should go forward with it and impeach Biden because Biden probably does deserve to be impeached or not in power. But the fact that they're not doing it isn't like this massive loss because nothing would come from it. It's not like you have 67 people in the Senate willing to impeach these people. You don't even have Manchin. You don't even have Sinema. You likely don't even have half of the Republicans because the Republicans are so weak. So that's what it comes down to. It's probably just not going to happen. Should it happen? Yes, but it can't logistically go through given what's in Congress. Exactly, says Bloody Knuckles Crenshaw. Yeah, Dan Crenshaw was arguably one of the most obnoxious supporters of McCarthy, and I'm not really surprised by that. That guy he really is Eye Patch McCain. He's the new golden boy of the GOP establishment, and he finally, now that Trump is not in power, now that Trump is out of the way, he's finally showing his true colors. He really is. And that's that. And we knew it back in the day when he caved on red flag laws, but it's gotten progressively worse since he did that. He was this rising star. No wonder why this guy gets to go on SNL. They prop this guy up as, this is unity. We're going to have him sitting next to Pete Davidson, and they're going to apologize to each other, whatever. Yeah, they'd let him do that. They wouldn't let a lot of the Freedom Caucus members do that for multiple reasons, and we know why. But he is a part of the Uniparty. That should have been a telltale sign then, but now we know for sure. So up next, MH says, I love Trump, but as a Catholic, I'm troubled. He blames pro-life Republicans for the midterm underperformance. Ever since that statement, I've decided to vote for DeSantis if he runs. Thoughts? Well, I will say this. I personally don't think that Trump was I don't think 100% of that statement that he made was false. I don't believe he was blaming pro-life Republicans. I've read the statement probably 5 to 10 times. I did an exclusive video analyzing the statement on my website as well. But I will say this. It was a dumb statement to make regardless because, first of all, it wasn't abortion. Abortion was not the key issue that doomed Republicans. He's right to an extent to say certain comments made by Dixon or Mastriano might have weighed them down a little bit in states where a lot of voters just don't care about the issue. And it is true that you have to campaign differently than you govern. Donald Trump in 2016, he talked about appointing pro-life justices and judges, but he really didn't lean too much into the abortion issue. And it paid dividends for him. He won on the issue, and he overturned Roe v. Wade when he was in power, was the most pro-life president in American history. So what's true is there's a difference between how you campaign and how you govern. So Trump was right about that, but still, it was a dumb statement to make because even though I don't really believe he was attacking pro-lifers or whatever, he kind of came off a little crass against the abortion issue. He came off a little liberal on it in the general public who's not going to sift through that statement. And he just fumbled voters away in the process to Ron DeSantis in a primary, who, again, has the same exact stance and strategy as well on abortion as Donald Trump has. But still, when it comes down to it, the average voter just sees DeSantis as somebody who's getting things done in Florida. And that's really all that matters. And Trump is going to be in some trouble if he does not fully correct course in a primary. And I will say that because it wasn't initially going to be competitive, but now, these are missteps to a large degree. And even though he's not entirely wrong when he says a lot of the things that he's saying regarding the fact that, campaigning without exceptions is not popular, etc., but still, it looks like you're punching right, and you shouldn't be punching right at this time. You should be punching at the Republican establishment, which he said at the end of the statement. Also, Mitch's dumb spending. It is true, but it's deeper than it's just deeper than that. Like, he's right about that. There's just so much that he didn't need to say in that statement, even though parts of what he was saying was not entirely true. And the fact is, a lot of people are taking it the wrong way. Conservative media is not exactly on his side anymore the way they used to be, and that's a problem for him. It really is. So up next we have RCT Luxury says, I think I'm going to vote for Biden because Biden is a dino. All of these establishment Republicans had a chance to overturn Roe, but under Biden's watch, he did it. Biden 2024. Very funny. Now, that has become a meme. I've seen that several times said on the internet in jest. It's like, oh, Biden, Catholic Biden overturns Roe v. Wade. And it's like, yeah, I wonder how many people actually think that way in the real world, though. Probably like 5. Probably a bunch of people in like the Northeast that don't follow politics, that like are Catholics or whatever, but have voted Democrat for decades upon decades. Exactly says, why were there 434 votes? Who was missing? I don't know. Let me see. Can I find out who was missing? I think you had one person not show up to vote. Let me see if I could find them. I don't know. I don't know where they are. Maybe were they on the Dem side? They might have been on the Dem side, actually. That they probably were, because all the Republicans showed up to vote. I mean, they announced the caucus. It's a very important vote for them. It's not as much of an important vote for the Dems anyways, because they were never going to get 5 Republicans to cave unless McCarthy was ready and willing to actually step down. So, the guy missing was a Dem that. Oh, it was the Mick whatever guy. I forgot his last name, but McKeon from Virginia. Yeah, no, that's true. That is true. That guy's actually dead. That's why he didn't vote. Macintosh 1581 says Trump needs to return to the populace, drain the swamp platform that won him 2016. He's still attacking the radical left and socialism too much. That's a problem, and I agree. Now, if there's an alternative that would rise that would just go on the full offense about all against everything that Trump was against in 2016, they probably could be able to defeat him in the primary. But I don't think that serious candidate that is in that same field of opposition truly exists. Now, it's true. He's attacking socialism, which, again, we already have Florida by like 20 points. There's no need to keep using that word. I mean, the left, a lot of the left, like I've said, they are very corporate. Using the term socialist is not exactly a proper terminology to use against him. You're better off using communist because that's a blanket term that covers social Marxism as well. And like the term radical left, he didn't use either of these terms back in 2016 when he won or in his inauguration speech. But that's all he uses now. And I don't believe that these terms really resonate with anybody. They really don't. And a lot of the Republicans that won didn't exactly use these terms either. They either like focused on kitchen table issues, getting things done, etc. A lot of them were incumbents, by the way, mainly incumbent governors. So 100% true. This whole radical left tagline, what does it even mean? Radical left. Oh, the left is radical, whatever. It's like, okay, we know that. We understand that. Like, that's not going to change any minds. Radical left. Radical liberal Raphael Warnock. Yeah, it's the same concept. And it just doesn't work. Socialism. This doesn't exactly work. You're not running against Bernie Sanders. If you were running against Bernie Sanders, somebody who calls himself a socialist or whatever, like, yeah, these people are big spenders, whatever, but like that's not grounds to just use the word socialist. It just lost its meaning time and time again. And it's not the 1980s anymore. It's not the 1980s. The years of the Soviet Union, they've been dissolved for 30 years now. This is the time to focus on issues that actually matter. And that's pretty much it. And it might have gotten you some extra votes in Florida that you probably were going to get anyways. Okay, well, that's not enough. You have to have something for the base that carried you to victory in 2016, for Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, etc. Now, a lot of those voters stuck with Trump and voted in 2020, but it's still, was it enough? Well, yeah, you know the stuff, but I mean, either way, shouldn't have even come down to anything close. If you are an incumbent president and you're able to keep that messaging and use that to gain popularity, like there's no reason to touch Social Security. There's no reason to talk about touching Medicare. It's just not a good look. That's why Blake Masters underperformed the other candidates in Arizona. That's why Don Bolduc didn't do that well in New Hampshire as well. And this is true. You talk about touching Social Security. That's not something that Trump would have even gotten close to in 2016. And you have to protect that. You have to campaign on protecting that. And that's another problem with Ron DeSantis as well, because he was a staunch supporter of cutting Social Security and Medicare back in the day. That's going to be used against him ad nauseum against any Democrat, and it's not going to benefit him in a general election for president of the United States. So people need to understand that as well, when it comes down to these unknown characters, whether you think that they're popular or not. A lot of things could be unearthed about them that are not exactly going to make them that popular. But yeah, it is true. Priorities have been out of whack for quite some time for the Republicans in this country. And obviously Trump and others are not immune from that as well. It's kind of like this boomer talk. Whatever was used 40 years ago that was effective, demography's changed since then. Our culture has changed since then. We've lost control of every single social and cultural institution. And when we have control of certain aspects of the government, we don't do anything to reverse that trend. And that is a problem. That's a major issue that we have. So let's see here. We have a lot more super chats to get to. Let's see. We already did that one. Matt Gagnon says, you're running for Michigan U.S. Senate in 2024. No, I am not. I would not be old enough, and I don't live in the state of Michigan anymore. It's very possible that I do run for office in the future, but Senate in 2024, no, I'm not going to be nearly old enough to fit the age requirement in order to run for Senate. Christopher Laurie says, when it comes to messaging, what issues do you think Trump or others need to focus on to get their base out to vote? Immigration, big tech, our housing crisis with rich lefties buying home, etc. I think that immigration is definitely a big one. Big tech is another one. You talk about the base. I think that just reverting the messaging back to what it was initially would be arguably enough against Biden in 2024. Biden's not that popular right now. Trump would be able to get his messaging back to what it was, but the energy also has to be back. His announcement speech was very good, very on point messaging-wise, but it put a lot of people to sleep, which, again, you could blame on the intimate setting that it was in, but still, it's going to be interesting to see when he hits the campaign trail and goes and does these rallies, but you can't say that he has the same political capital he even had a year ago. Based off of the midterms. And you could blame the GOP establishment for it, and you should blame the GOP establishment for it, but they still hold the power and they hold the sway over a lot of the base. And part of that happened during the Trump years, and they're going to use that as a vehicle to get rid of Trump, regardless whether you like Trump or not, as the pick for 2024. So, Joseph Vall says, Doomers BTFO, we got church-style committee with Jordan and Massey. Rules committee package, key chairmanships from the Brave 20, art of the deal, baby. Yeah, and honestly, I'll actually end the poll right now, and I think that is fair. It's a fair assessment. I think that McCarthy being speaker, not the best thing in the world, but McCarthy being a figurehead while the Freedom Caucus gets to control pretty much everything, that is awesome. I think that's honestly better than if he stepped aside and somebody like maybe a little better like Scalise was speaker. I mean, absolutely. If this actually happens and these demands are kept and the promises are kept, which again is not a sure thing, I think they'll have to vote in the rules package or whatever. But absolutely, it'll be a very, very good thing to happen 100% of the way. So Let's see, more super chats. I'm going to have a sip of water. I haven't really drank that much water during this stream, but either way, here we are. So, yeah, 778 viewers, and we're an hour in, and it's after midnight on the East Coast, by the way. So you guys did a pretty good job in the turnout game tonight, I will say. Next, let's see what we have. David Solovey says Oz is going to win easily. Why should we ever trust you again? Well, why should you ever trust the polls again is the real question. Because typically, and I will say this, the metrics that were used to predict past elections accurately, whether if it was 2016 or 2018 or 2020, a lot of them were proven wrong in 2022. And every single predictor, whether if it was Nate Plastic, whether it was Let's Talk, all these people, they had Oz winning. They had Republicans winning the Senate. I had it at 53 seats. Some of them had it at 51, 52, whatever. A lot of these metrics were thrown in the garbage. Every single person failed in 2022 in some way or another. And not a single person also would have predicted an R+3 national environment where Republicans barely retook the House and lost a seat in the Senate and completely failed a lot of governorships. So it is a learning experience. My predictions were not perfect. They're a little off in some cases. But I will say this. Either way, we know what's going to happen in the future. We also know what we need to do to change. And obviously, Arizona, I know what people are saying in chat, understandable, but it was a little bit deeper than that. In Pennsylvania, that was out of left field. Nevada, again, Republicans in the turnout game in the rurals, they did not match the Dems. You look at some of these counties, even like Laxalt, he outperformed Trump in Clark County and Reno enough to win. If he would have got even Trump's percentage margins in the rural areas, he would have won. But the Republicans not playing the turnout game, it's a little bit of an issue. So that's kind of my takeaway on it. These elections were a little bit of a mess all around. And I think that in terms of predicting future elections, there's going to be a little bit of a back to the drawing board approach from everybody, whether if it's myself or other people. Gerald Armstrong says only people who use the term socialist are the Charlie Kirk TPUSA types. Well, even they're not using it as much. I mean, obviously TPUSA, the organization, yes, they're still using the term. And this is why Republicans are a little out of touch with these younger voters. You go to TPUSA events or even just like campus speeches or whatever, and all the flyers they're passing around, it's like just generic stuff about socialism, or just like generic like pro-America stuff. And it's like, it needs to be deeper than this. This is not going to get you college students on your side. It's really not. A lot of even right-wing college students, even people in these organizations, are not really fond of the paperwork or the signs or stickers or slogans that are passed around. So, but Charlie Kirk honestly has used the term less overall, which, he's somehow over the past few years has taken a little bit of a turn to the right or away from libertarianism. I don't know to what extent that's authentic, but even if it's not, it's still a massive net positive. But he's also been less involved, from what I've been told, in the TPUSA organization itself. So it's not like their leadership is changing a whole lot. But I will say, looking at like the 2019 SAS flyer and even comparing it to the 2022 flyers that we've seen, like the speakers have objectively gotten better. You had some like weak run-of-the-mill rhinos that are out of the way, and you have more like of the more based Congress people that are on the flyers. So I don't know. The organization itself has obviously work to do, but I mean, you could say it's improved since then, but not necessarily by enough to really make a change in these younger generations where Republicans continue to bleed support time and time again. And a lot of young conservatives just didn't turn out for the midterms as well. They were not that enthused. So that should tell you something. But Rule Americana says Trump embracing MAGA communism would give him a landslide victory. I still don't understand what that concept is. Like it has a different definition from pretty much every single person that espouses it. Some people say it's like just Trump 2016 is like MAGA communism because it's more like anti-corporate, and then you have the people that are like actual communists but happen to be like vaguely socially conservative or nationalists that happen to call themselves MAGA communists. So I don't really know. I don't think that using the term communism is a winning strategy in a positive light, just as using the word socialism in a negative light is a winning strategy overall. You're going to have to you still do have to reach the boomers, of course. And in terms of reaching the boomers, saying like, oh, I'm a MAGA communist, a lot of people are just going to scratch their heads if you're going to be using that term as well. Just like a lot of people aren't moved by the whole socialism thing. It doesn't mean you actually become a socialist or whatever. But exactly, says Scalise's not better, wouldn't support Hageman. Interesting. I didn't know about that. And that's kind of another litmus test. Liz Cheney, if you're supporting Liz Cheney monetarily or even verbally or whatever after everything that she's pulled, then you're not exactly on our side. You're not. You're a loser. You're a neocon. You are a rhino. At the very least, you could say rhino enabler, but at that point, I think you'd have to just go full on to the rhino category. Absolutely. David Solovey says, you actually have a fair argument. I eat my words. Well, thank you. A lot of people don't understand, or maybe I just need to explain it more often. But what can I say? Olivia Williams says, do you worry Trump runs third party if he loses the nomination? I don't know. I feel like if he did that, he'd lose a lot of support in terms of his legacy, his permanent legacy. So I'm not necessarily sure that he would. If he actually did run third party, it would help Republicans down ballot, believe it or not. But at the same time, it would basically guarantee Joe Biden would be reelected. Regardless of however you want to chalk it up, because he can't win third party, and Republicans aren't going to win if he runs third party. And there may be some sort of loser laws in some states that would prevent that from happening. Maybe it's not true for the presidential level. I don't know, but still, if they do affect that, he's not going to be able to really run at all third party in a lot of places. So it would kind of be a futile endeavor overall. Jonathan Owen says, I loathe Charlie Kirk, GOP Inc. He's cringe. Yeah, I mean, what I will say is he has changed his rhetoric on things like immigration and other things in the past couple of years or so. So is he a part of that club? Yeah, but he has, like I said, he has sort of improved on some issues, even if you want to say it's a grift or whatever. So that is a net positive regardless. The DM Productions says, if conservatives want to win the young back, they have to stop the culture war and war on sex. No, they have to keep fighting in the culture war. If you can't fight the culture war, you're not going to be able to win. In fact, a lot of the people that conservative, even some of like the more electabros will point to, like DeSantis or Youngkin or some of these other people, they fought the culture war on the campaign trail and they actually won. The whole like war on sex or whatever, like I don't think anybody's fighting that at all. Maybe they're not fighting it enough in certain aspects. I don't know. But I don't exactly know what the hell the war on sex even is. That's a new term that's never been thrown around before that I've ever seen. But if conservatives want to win, they're going to have to engage in the culture war. But they're also going to have to engage in the culture themselves. You know, we talk about all these films or whatever conservatives are making, Daily Wire, etc. Okay, that's fine. But at the same time, a lot of these films are not going to resonate with anybody outside of the conservative sphere. You're going to have to also just have normal people that make these type of movies happen to be conservatives, have these hidden messages the same way the left does. So that's what I will say. I'll say that much. So, all right, I think this will be the last call for Super Chats. I think we're going to end the stream pretty soon. It's 12:14 on the East Coast, 11:14 here in Texas. So we've been going for about an hour. If you guys have any more Super Chats, feel free to send them. Otherwise, we're going to end the stream in probably a couple of minutes or so. But yeah, it is definitely an interesting time we live in for politics. And it was a little bit of a chaotic week, which is kind of good. honestly, for for people that do pay attention, I will say, because it kind of was boring for a month. And it usually is in December, by the way. I think last year, December was a little bit different because you still had, a lot of 2022 talk. We don't exactly have 2024 talk as well. Christopher Laurie says if Trump is the nominee, it looks like a favorable Senate map this time, unlike 2022. It is a favorable map regardless of who the nominee is, but Trump does have that down ballot effect, and it's proven more so than I think somebody like DeSantis would in the Rust Belt. So, yep, that's the way it is. So, we'll see. I mean, it's possible they still get in the mid-50s, but after 2022, nothing is for certain. I think they are a lock to retake the Senate. I can't see Democrats holding West Virginia, Montana, or Ohio in 2024. But who even knows at this point? I would still say that those three are going to be safe. I wouldn't say safe red for Ohio, maybe not even Montana, but they should either be lean or likely, and then West Virginia's safe. Manchin is pretty much dead on arrival. He barely beat a weak candidate in 2018, and that's when he actually had to vote with Trump a certain percentage of the time, more than he's been voting with, or more than he's been voting against Biden, I should say. The DM production says I'm referring to people like Mike Lee. I don't know what Mike Lee has said regarding the culture war or whatever. It seems like he shies away from it. Exactly, says not gonna lie, if the right could get the gens. No, that's dumb. That's a dumb take. That's a dumb take. It's not as nothing. You're talking about the fact that 1% of the right wing is this, that, the other thing, and it's just like, no, you're not going to be able to win by pandering to such a small subsect of the internet, and you shouldn't be encouraging certain behavior that is not conservative, I will say, overall. So no, I'm going to disagree with that take. But I will say overall that there does need to be changes financially for a lot of young people that are struggling to get ahead. The reason why I think a lot of young people, or young normies, I should say, besides like the fact that they have been culturally brainwashed, you do have a lot of people that are, maybe in the middle of the culture war or whatever, but they're attracted to the left because they actually are giving them a reason to vote for them economically, even if their economics are flawed, whereas Republicans are going to sit back here and talk about, it all has to do with, we always have to stop socialism or whatever. It's like that message doesn't resonate with young people, and it's not like socialism is a serious threat in this country. It's not the 1980s anymore. There's like 3 or 4 politicians that are touting, actual like forms of socialism in the entire country, and even then they bend the knee and they cave to the corporate Dems at every single turn. ZM Production says Mike Lee's trying to ban free expression based off of his personal morals. Also, as an independent, I'm vowing now if Trump is not the nominee, I'm done with voting Republican. Okay, thank you for the super chat. I don't even know what free expression Mike Lee is talking about, so I can't exactly comment on that, but we'll see. But either way, I will say that Republicans do need to get their act together, regardless. Like this is honestly, you could even say what happened this past week wasn't that positive, or even like if it actually does lead to change in Congress, which is not a sure thing, that would actually be some sort of a white pill. But at the same time, it's like you still have McCarthy as speaker, even nominally. It's not the best look for the GOP brand because that's what most people see. And on top of that point, you still are in a train wreck electorally speaking. What is your plan to navigate the election system currently in place for 2024? You didn't win a single governorship and you lost a bunch of chambers and state legislatures in states that matter. So it's not like there's going to be serious changes. You could try lawsuits, but those are probably going to fail because there have been lawsuits time and time again that have been put in there. And we know there's a lot of Biden judges nobody ever talks about this, but Biden is like on track to outpace Trump for the judge appointments or so. Mainly because a lot of Republicans are just handing him yes votes for his appointments. Living Dream says, should the GOP promote and embrace cheaper education to attract Gen Z? Well, they need a plan for it. I'm not saying they have to do what the opposition is doing, but they need to formulate some sort of a plan that is vaguely helpful to actually get voters on their side, or they're not going to be able to win them. Now, I don't have any student debt. I'm doing just fine. But the average voter out there that doesn't pay too much attention isn't that involved, because yes, people like that do exist. You're still going to have to win over these voters, and that's true. CJH5 Cases, keep up the good work, Rep. Thank you. Mary Hogan says, thank you for staying humble on your streams. I plan on registering lots of Republicans this cycle. How about you? Well, we're not quite there for 2024. There are many things that I've thought about doing potentially for this channel, for not just for me to get involved, but for all 155,000 plus of you, maybe more by then or so, to get involved. And I think that part of that does include some sort of system where there would be like a phone banking type. There's a lot of theories that I've come up with for what I could do to potentially mobilize the entire audience, or at least people that want to get involved as well, but I don't know. The DM Production says, genuinely, I'm pissed off at Republicans as a voter. I'm really questioning my position in the GOP. My congressman voted McCarthy. Will I give him a vote again? Well, did he initially support McCarthy, or did he support him at the 11th hour is another question. He probably initially supported McCarthy, which is not really a good sign, but there's very few. Again, I think that we need to, and again, people might get mad at me for saying this again, but the vote red no matter who thing should actually help us in the long run. I mean, Democrats have been voting blue no matter who for the past 6 years, and they've been the ones winning. They have that mentality. Republicans, we throw each other under the bus for good reason sometimes, but at the end of the day, we could be critical of them and still turn out and vote, because either way, the rhinos tend to be winning regardless. And just this mentality of not voting is probably going to prevent a lot of America First candidates from actually winning in a lot of these races as well. So the Meep Kid says, sorry, Corp Dems are socialists. Well, it depends how you define socialist. Because if you're talking about the average voter, they don't see it that way. And that's the problem. Of course, they're socially Marxist. They believe in a corporate form of socialism or corporatocracy. And either way, it is a very similar thing. Corporations are in bed with the government and vice versa, and we know that. So it would really depend how you define it. Living Dream says, give me your take on Youngkin 2024. Honestly, I might prefer him over DeSantis. I've heard he's very good behind the scenes. He's doing a pretty good job for governor of a Biden plus 10 state, but I don't think he would run. And is he really like better than even Trump at this point? Not really entirely sure. But he's done a good job so far, and if he's like the VP, like I consider a Trump Youngkin ticket to be pretty solid at this point, especially given what I've heard about him behind the scenes. So that's pretty much it. All right, guys, thanks for watching the stream. Like the stream, subscribe before you go if you haven't, and hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another stream or video. And I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.